Thank you, Bill. Clarity is always a good thing. Amen. I need that prayer. Thank you so much. Hey, yesterday was an exciting day. It was an impact day at Fairmount. Our church spread out all over the community, serving others and helping other folks. And so thank you for your kindness and generosity in seeing that happen. Yesterday was also the Monument Avenue 10K. Who did the 10K yesterday? Raise your hand if you did the 10K. I see two over here. 2 people in this whole room. That's it. All right. Everybody clap for those 2 people. There you go. Yay. You're still alive. Yay. That's exciting. Hey, I want to ask you a question today. Have you ever said to somebody, sitting on the sofa or something, watch TV, and you go, you know what? I'm going to run up to the grocery store real quick. I'm going to run up to Lowe's real quick. I'll be back shortly. I just got to get a couple things. And then, you go to the store and you're there an hour and a half. Does that sound like you or somebody you love, right? You get checking out the ice cream aisle, get checking out the clearance aisle, you get checking out the new grills. I get stuck in the mall. I love some good mulch, all that good stuff. Betsy will take 8 hours just to cruise the end caps at Target. She'll say, I'm just going to run in for a second. And I'll say, that's fine. Take your time, hon. I love you. Have a good time. Bye-bye. And then I can listen to an entire baseball game while she's in the store. And that's all right. That's good. That's good relaxation for me. There's no such thing, I think, as a quick trip to the store. We're taking this month and we're trying to take a quick trip through the life of Jesus. That's a little daunting of a task. How do you do that? You can't do that, but we're doing that. 3 Sundays covering 33 years of the most important life that's ever been lived. Now, there is no way of determining an exact number, I don't think. There might be, but I can't think what it would be. But I asked Microsoft's AI platform, I think it's called Copilot. I said to Copilot, can you tell me how many books have been written about Jesus? And, the AI does its little thing, and AI came back. I appreciated AI's candor. It's impossible to know for sure. Oh, all right. But it would be in the tens of thousands. Wow. I might have guessed even more, maybe. How do you adequately summarize, put down into one book or what? How do you adequately address in a book the life of Jesus, the entire life of Jesus? Now, we've narrowed our focus down a bit by homing in on his journey of hope that he demonstrates for us. We started with his birth. We're going through his life. We come to his crucifixion and ultimately, of course, his resurrection. Jesus' life is a life of hope. Now let's just take a moment and talk about Easter for a second. If you got a bulletin when you came in, you saw the back was a little bit different today. It is all about Easter at Fairmount. This is that time of year, like Christmas, where the folks in the world around us, they do have questions about what we as Christians, celebrate. They think it's all bunnies and eggs and candy and all that. No, that's all fine, all good, whatever. But we all know there's a much deeper meaning to Easter, and I think we can invite them to come with us to church over this season. We can invite them to come into our homes. We can invite to go out to coffee and tell them what Easter is really all about. We gave you this today. You can literally take this home with you, give it to a neighbor, put it in their paper box, put it up on a bulletin board at work or whatever you want to do to just let folks know what we're doing to celebrate Easter this year. It'll today Road to Resurrection with all of our children doing that wonderful journey as they go to the cross and to the empty tomb. Friday night, we're going to have a Good Friday service here at 7 o'clock in the sanctuary, and you're all invited to that contemplative time. And then next Sunday, we're going to have our 3 worship services. We're going to have a lot of people in this room. We're going to have a lot of people in our sanctuary, and that's going to be awesome, and we will enjoy that. We'll also have at 6:30 next Sunday morning a sunrise service in the sanctuary. And I tell you this every year, that's an excellent opportunity. Like if you're traveling next Sunday, you're going to grandma's or you're going to the grandkids or whatever, come at 6:30. You get to worship with your church family and then have communion, and then you can hit the road. So if you're traveling, come in your travel clothes. We don't care. We would love to see you next Sunday morning at 6:30 as well. You can do that and the services next Sunday. But I always like to let you know we have that special service every Easter early in the morning, and would love to see you at that. That's Easter. So our quick journey through the life of Jesus comes today to this week that we call Passion Week. Last week we focused on the hope that was wrapped up in Jesus' birth. Jesus goes to the temple when he's just days old, and he encounters there Simeon and Anna, and they proclaim over him the hope that they had been looking for their entire lives, and now they're seeing that hope held in the arms of his mother. Then the message of hope we demonstrated last week is shown in his preaching. He goes to a synagogue in Nazareth. He pulls out Isaiah. He reads from Isaiah and tells him that those passages of hope now are fulfilled in him. It is a birth. It is a message of hope from the very beginning. Now, around the world, today is recognized as Palm Sunday, the day Jesus triumphantly rode into Jerusalem, setting off a week of escalating worship and a week of escalating conflict, culminating, of course, on Friday in his crucifixion. I want you to listen to the extremes of the week as recorded by the gospel writer Mark. Mark says in chapter 11, when they brought the colt to Jesus and threw their cloaks over it, he sat on it. Many people spread their cloaks on the road, while others spread branches they had cut in the fields. Those who went ahead and those who followed shouted, "Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the coming kingdom of our father David. Hosanna in the highest heaven." Jesus entered Jerusalem and went into the temple courts. Now this is the hope that people had in their hearts. The Messiah is now in their midst. Jesus fulfills these long ago prophecies. Dozens of prophecies were being fulfilled by Jesus. And you know those old things you used to do when you were a child? You had the, connect the dots, and you connect all the dots. You don't know what it is when you're looking at the page full of dots. When you connect all the dots, there's a bunny, there's a dog, there's something there, right? Well, they connected all the dots and they saw, it's the Messiah. We have found him. And they worship him accordingly. But then, less than a week later, at noon, darkness came over the whole land until 3 in the afternoon. And at 3 in the afternoon, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, "Eloi, Eloi, lema sabachthani," which means, my God, why have you forsaken me?" When some of those standing near heard this, they said, "Listen, he's calling Elijah." Someone ran, filled a sponge with wine vinegar, put it on a staff, and offered it to Jesus to drink. "Now leave him alone. Let's see if Elijah comes to take him down." With a loud cry, Jesus breathed his last. The curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom, and when the centurion who stood there in front of Jesus saw how he died, he said, "Surely this man was the Son of God." The hope of Palm Sunday, nailed to a Roman cross on a very Black Friday. I want us this morning to focus on that day. I want us to focus this morning on that event. In reality, what the world around us may not know is that the crucifixion is a hope-filled event. It doesn't look like it, does it? Doesn't feel like it, does it? It looks like, it feels like defeat. It looks like, it feels like loss, like grief, like finality. It looks and it feels like the end of hope. But it is actually the exact opposite. And that's why we call it Good Friday and not Black Friday. For the follower of Jesus, we look at the crucifixion with eyes turned inward. How does this event, this gruesome event in history, give me hope? We also look at the crucifixion with eyes turned outward. How does this event, this gruesome event in history, give hope to the world? We need to hear, we need to remember, we need to tell others of the hope that the cross, the crucifixion brings. Now, I took some time this past week looking at the passages outside the Gospels in the New Testament, but not the four Gospels, that talk about the crucifixion of Jesus, that talk about the cross. Paul writes about it, as you can imagine, quite extensively, but the other New Testament writers don't shy away from it either. I discovered in those passages the hope that the cross brings. The first lesson comes just a few weeks after the crucifixion and resurrection. It comes on the day of Pentecost when Peter is preaching to the crowds that have gathered in Jerusalem. Many people have come to town for Pentecost. Peter uses it as an opportunity to preach. Peter tells them in that message of the hope that there is in the cross. He tells them that on the cross, God overcomes our greatest mistakes. He says, therefore let all Israel be assured of this. God has made this Jesus, whom you crucified, both Lord and Messiah. You crucified him. Huh. But God wasn't done. Though we know that it fit perfectly into God's cosmic plan, you have to admit that crucifying the Son of God was not the smartest move that we've ever made. Mankind has done some dumb things over the years, haven't they? This has to rank near the top. But even in their horrible error, God's plan is still at work. And he exalts Jesus. He is our Lord and our Messiah. I look at that cross and I am reminded that no matter what dumb things I do, no matter what sins I commit, no matter what selfishness I demonstrate, no matter what junk I throw at the Lord, God's plan overcomes my mistakes, my frailties, my weaknesses, time after time after time. I cannot derail God. You cannot derail God. And I'm so very glad. Moses had excuse after excuse. He even argues with God, yet God still led his people out of Egypt. Jonah ran away from God. Instead of going on a boat to where God told him to go, he got on a boat and went the exact opposite direction. God still saved Nineveh. Peter denied that he even knew who Jesus was. Not once, not twice, 3 times said, I don't know the man. God built a great church on the faith of those disciples. Paul has Christians jailed. Paul has Christians killed. Yet God reached the Gentile nations. Story after story in the Bible, story after story in our lives today. Lee Strobel was an investigative journalist for the Chicago Tribune back in the 80s. His wife converts to Christianity. He is not only doesn't believe all that stuff, he is an atheist. He does not even believe God exists. So he puts his talents as an investigative journalist into work, proving that Christianity is wrong. But God had bigger plans for him. And through his research, he actually becomes convinced of the truth of the Bible, the truth of the Gospels, the truth of Christianity. He converts to Christ and is now one of the most prolific apologetic authors in the world today, having sold over 20 million books defending our faith. You cannot derail God. My mistakes, my frailties, my weaknesses, my ill-intended decisions cannot derail God, and that fills me with hope. The cross is a symbol of hope because on it God demonstrates his wisdom. It seems so strange to us, I'll say strange to me, that the hope of the world involved a man being brutally tortured and executed. That just seems really strange to me. I suspect it might seem strange to you as well, but it's the truth. And Paul tells us quite bluntly what God is doing here. He says in 1 Corinthians 1, "For the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but of us who are being saved, it's the power of God. For it's written, I'll destroy the wisdom of the wise, the intelligence of the intelligent I will frustrate. Where's the wise person? Where's the teacher of the law? Where's the philosopher of this age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? For since in the wisdom of God, the world through its wisdom did not know him, God was pleased through the foolishness of what was preached to save those who believe. Jews demand signs, Greeks look for wisdom, but we preach Christ crucified, a stumbling block to Jews and foolishness to Gentiles. But to those whom God has called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. For the foolishness of God is wiser than human wisdom, and the weakness of God is stronger than human strength. This was God's plan from the beginning. Only sacrifice would cover our sinfulness. Paul says that the wages of sin is death. Something has to die for my sin. Now, the very first death that occurs in history is when Adam and Eve have sinned and God kills animals to make clothes for those sinners. The very first sacrifice was to cover sin. For centuries, God allowed that to be covered by goats or bulls or some other animal sacrifice. But that was a temporary solution that had to be done over and over and over for centuries. But in God's wisdom, He came to earth as a man, a perfect man, at just the right time. And He died for my sins. A perfect sacrifice. A perfect solution. That's foolish to the world. But most things that are true, most things of value, most things of eternal importance are foolish to the world. I told you last week that Betsy and I went up to Toronto over spring break to see the Blue Jays. And we stand up, for the seventh inning stretch like we all do. We're good. They sang something else first. I don't know. It was a weird song. I don't remember what it was. And then we sang the good, the right song. But as we were standing up, the man in front of me, there was a couple sitting in front of us. The man in front of me had money fall out of his pocket down to below his seat and into the gears of the seat right next to him. And I'm friends, I'm not talking quarters and dimes here. I'm talking $100 bills, $50 bills, plural, pour out of this man's pocket. And so I just lean up and say, "Sir, you had some money fall out of your pocket." And he's like, "Oh," so he scatters it all up and he puts it in his wife's purse. She zips it up. She's like, "You're giving me that money now." You know what I mean? And he looked at me with eyes of incredulity. He looked at least, and maybe more, at least 4 times he turned around and said to me, "Thank you so much." It's like, dude, he's like I'd saved his child from a burning building or something. "Thank you so much." I think he was truly shocked that somebody would return money to him that he had lost. But that's what we do. We do things that are foolish to the world. The cross is a powerful and amazing demonstration of God's wisdom. And when I embrace God's wisdom, His ways in my life, even the things that are foolish to the world, I have unshakable hope. The cross points to hope because it's there that God crucifies our sin. He crucifies my sin. Peter contributes this to our lessons on hope. He says, "He Himself bore our sins in His body on the cross so that we might die to sins and live for righteousness. By His wounds you have been healed." Peter reached back to the ancient prophecies and tells us that the crucifixion of Jesus is when those prophecies came to fruition. Specifically, he's pointing at Isaiah 53. Isaiah had written centuries before the Messiah arrives on the scene, "He was pierced for our transgressions." Hundreds of years before crucifixion. "He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on Him, and by His wounds we are healed." That became a reality on the cross. My sins are paid for. My sins are punished. And Jesus did it for me. Jesus did it for you. My sinful life is crucified, and now I can live a righteous life. I can live a life right with God. I have hope. That's only possible because of the cross. Before the cross, I had no hope. After the cross, we are full of hope. And that leads to our final truth. On that old rugged cross, God makes peace with us. You see, from the time of Adam and Eve in the garden, we have been at war with God. My will versus His will. My wisdom versus His wisdom. Me, my versus Him. And that's a battle, by the way, that He lets us win. He lets us win that battle to our detriment. Thankfully, Jesus forged a peace between us and God on the cross. Paul has a lot to say about the cross in the book of Colossians. That's a great one to read about crucifixion and cross and its implications. But I want you to hear what he writes in Colossians chapter 1. He said, "For God was pleased to have all of his fullness dwell in him, in Jesus, and through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether things on earth and things in heaven, by making peace through his blood shed on the cross. Once you were alienated from God and were enemies in your minds because of your evil behavior, but now he has reconciled you by Christ's physical body through death, to present you holy in his sight, without blemish and free from accusation." We can have hope today because we are reconciled with God. We can have hope today because Jesus forged a peace treaty between us and him. Regardless of who you are, regardless of what you've done, regardless of how far away you've gotten, regardless of how sinful you have been or how sinful you are today, you can be at peace with God through the cross of Jesus. Are you at war with God? Are you battling him? Are you resisting him? Stop. Let him win. Let Jesus forge that eternal peace between you and him. You see, the cross symbolizes the hope of the world. I used to think, and this is silly, but I used to think that wouldn't it be more appropriate for us to walk around with little empty tombs on our jewelry? Wouldn't that make a little bit more sense, right? And people would have to walk up to you and go, "What's that weird thing?" And you go, "Oh, it's the empty tomb. Let me tell you about it." That always seemed like that would make a whole lot more sense to me for our jewelry. But in truth, before there could be an empty tomb, there had to be a cross. And before someone can celebrate Jesus' resurrection, they have to be confronted with Jesus' death. Before we can embrace our own resurrection one day, we have to be confronted with our sinfulness that nailed Jesus to a cross. My salvation, the salvation of a lost world, begins at the cross. I would encourage you today to display the cross. I'm not telling you to go out and buy anything, jewelry. Ladies, I'm not giving you an excuse to go out and buy jewelry. I want to be okay with your husbands tomorrow. Display the cross, whether that's jewelry or decorations in your home or, paintings that you hang up, T-shirts, whatever. Why not? Let people see the cross. But don't just display the cross. Share the hope of the cross. Live out the hope of the cross. Be an example of the cross. It's not uncommon to see sports stars or celebrities wearing a cross. Sometimes you see a big jewelry or you see them tattooed on their arms or something like that. But then you look at their lives and you see incredibly sinful lives. They sing explicit, horrible, demeaning lyrics in their songs, or they treat people we see those things. If you're going to wear the cross, if you're going to display the cross at work, if you're going to put the cross on a T-shirt, if you're going to put the cross on your car, live like it, work like it, act like it, drive like it. Sorry. Talk like it, social media like it. Be prepared to explain what the cross means to you. But even better, tell people what the cross means to you. The cross of Jesus brings us hope. The cross of Jesus brings us eternal life. I don't know, as I was looking up things for this week, I ran across some statistics. You'll know why here in just a second, so bear with me. Some statistics on yellow fever. Yellow fever is still a popular, that's not the word, rampant disease in the world today, killing over 100,000 people every year. Yellow fever, it's a serious thing. Spread by mosquitoes, by the way. So when I was, I think 95, when I was going to a mission trip to Kenya, I had to be inoculated. They won't let you in the country unless you have proof of yellow fever inoculation. So we were living in New York at the time, and this is long before the internet. So sorry, young people, long before the internet. So I called Corning Incorporated, which was located in Corning, New York, and I said, "Where do you guys travel everywhere? Where do I get a shot for yellow fever?" They said, "Oh, you got to go to Cornell University. Call up there." And so that was an hour away from our home or so. So I took little 4-year-old Matthew, and he and I drove up to Cornell University, walked into the college clinic there, and there were all the STD posters on the wall, and that was exciting. I had to tell Matthew, "Cover your eyes, son," and they were so excited because, there was somebody normal that had walked in there wanting something good, and so the nurse took me back and took me and Matthew back for me to get my shot, and she, went off and got, the inoculation. That needle was this long. I mean, it was that long. Yeah, it was amazing. Little Matthew turned white as a sheet. She says, "Honey, you go stand in the corner," and so I get that, and I'm able to go to, and so not worry about the mosquitoes, which are rampant in Kenya, and didn't have to worry about that. Well, those inoculations, those things that we allow us to do things like that, those things just don't happen overnight. Those things aren't just, invented all of a sudden. It takes years and years of research to come up. And yellow fever especially, because it ravaged our troops during the Spanish-American War, Americans became very interested in solving the problem of yellow fever. And so after the Spanish-American War, many volunteers, medical researchers, nurses, doctors went to Cuba to deal with folks who were suffering, but also to help alleviate suffering, and so many of them did. One of the more famous ones was a nurse by the name of Clara Moss. And Claire went down. She was a nurse, and she just felt that this was a calling she had. She had served during the Spanish-American War, wanted to go down and help relieve the suffering of the folks down in Cuba. And so she goes down there, and she allows herself to be bitten by mosquitoes for research purposes. That was a pretty brave thing to do. And so the historians tell us that over a period of a couple years, she is purposely exposed to mosquitoes 7 times and was bitten 7 times, and one got a little sick one time, not sick, all that stuff. On the 7th time, she died within a week. A week. Claire Moss is now a hero of the medical research community. There's a hospital named after her in New Jersey. There are U.S. postage stamp that had her face on it for a while. Historical figure to whom we owe a lot. Why would someone expose themselves to something that would kill them? Because she loved people. She had compassion for the hurting and compassion for the sick. 2,000 years ago, God looked down from heaven. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, who came to this earth because he loved us and looked on us with compassion because we were sick, and he saved our lives. That's who we celebrate when we look at the cross. It's who we celebrate at Easter. And you have friends, family, who need to hear that message. Maybe you need to hear that message today. And I don't want you to wait another day. I don't want you to put off another day giving your life to Jesus, the one who died for you, so you could live forever. And I'd love to talk with you about that today. Our worship team is going to lead us in a song of worship, and I'm going to invite you to stand and let's sing together.